Yeah, I hope that you hearing me. This is the future, all about cybersecurity. Talking about the hackers, I'm just trying to warn you. From the one and only legend, the cyber informer. Hey, yeah, this is the cyber reformer. This is the cyber reformer. Let's go.
It's time for the Cybersecurity Business Connect and Protect Central Coast informational video. I am Michael Tremblett, the Cyber Informer, and today we'll be talking about the Essential 8's patching operating systems. Patching operating systems has a large number of benefits, but there are some gotchas and pitfalls. In this video, we'll show you the fundamental ideas behind patching operating systems and talk about some of the issues that may arise from it. So let's go. In the context of the Essential 8, what does patch operating systems mean? In order to conform to the Essential 8's recommendations, we need to patch or mitigate computers, including network devices, with extreme risk vulnerabilities within 48 hours. Use the latest operating system version, and don't use unsupported versions. In these videos, we'll be talking about Windows. We will concentrate on Windows because that is where the principles apply the most. Whilst Mac and Linux need to conform to the same rules, Windows in the business world is by far the majority operating system, thus the biggest target. We will also touch on other critical infrastructure devices, such as routers and network-attached storage. To read about the Essential 8, go to https://loyalit.com.au/E8. This will redirect you to the government's website. Before we get into too much detail, we need to understand a few definitions so we can then understand how this part of the Essential 8 relates to securing your data. We have an early propeller hat zone. How does patching operating systems keep you safe? For that, we need to enter this propeller hat zone. The section is rated 2 propeller hats out of 5, as we'll be talking about the operating system versions and version numbers and finding exploits for them. What is an operating system? The definition from Google: the low-level software that supports a computer's basic functions, such as scheduling tasks and controlling peripherals. In English, this means it's a software program that allows you to interact with a digital computer system and its components. Think of the operating system as a foundation for everything else you use to run on. Operating system examples. Everything has an operating system. Computers, phones, routers, even smart light bulbs. Mobile phones have Android, iOS, or BlackBerry operating systems. Computers will have Windows, Mac OS, Unix, or Linux. Routers and other networking devices will typically have a Linux or Unix variant. What are Windows operating system versions? Most people will be familiar with Windows operating systems, as we have likely used a number of them in the past. We'll start back with Windows XP. Windows XP was released in 2002 and ended support in 2014. Windows Vista was released in 2006 and ended support in 2017. Windows 7 was released in 2009 and ended support in 2020. Windows 8 was released in 2012 and ended support in 2016. Windows 8.1 was released in 2013 and will end support in 2023. Windows 10 was released in 2015 and is currently in support. Note some major versions of Windows 10 are not supported. Windows 10 major versions. Windows 10 has multiple major versions. Major versions are released every 6 months and are typically named for the month and year. For example, 1507 was released in July of 2015. 1809 was meant to be released in September 2018, but was released in November 2018. The naming has changed recently to 20H2, meaning second half of 2020. At time of recording, the current version of Windows 10 is 21H1. Each major version is supported for approximately 18 months. Simple maths will tell you when your version of Windows 10 is going to be unsupported. To check what version you're running, click on the Start button and type About and click About Your PC. You will see your version on the lower half of the screen that appears. Now I'll give you a demonstration of this. Okay, so in Windows 10, we click on the Start button and we type in About. We'll click on About Your PC. That'll bring up a whole lot of information about the current machine. What we're looking for is down here. We can see there that this version is Windows 10 20H2. So it's not the latest operating system. How do we get on the most recent version of Windows 10? Well, we'll go to Windows Update. To do that, we click on the Start button and type in Update. We can see the top option is Check for Updates. So we'll click onto that. Windows Update will appear on the screen, and we can see at the very top here it says you're up to date. Alright, That means that we have the most recent security updates for this machine, but we're not necessarily on the most recent major version. Just below it, we can see feature update to Windows 10 version 21H1. Now to install it, all we have to do is click on the download and install button here, and it will go and download the major version onto this machine. We're not going to do that at the moment, but that is how you would actually do it. Now that we've seen that, we can talk about other operating systems. Unix, Linux, and Mac OS or OS X are all variants of the Unix operating system. These operating systems suffer from the same vulnerabilities just like Windows does. In small-medium enterprises, these operating systems are not as widely used as Windows, and as such, we'll acknowledge their existence, but all of these videos will not focus on these operating systems. Routers, switches, printers, NAS devices, and other smaller devices such as cameras and smart light bulbs have their own operating systems known as firmware. These devices can be described as Internet of Things devices. Typically, IoT devices will have firmware, not a full operating system. Firmware is a special type of software which controls the device's hardware. Firmware is typically stored on the flash ROM of a hardware device, not a hard drive. Flash ROM is on a microchip, similar to the technology in a USB flash drive, hence the name flash drive. Firmware does not typically update itself because if it fails, it can brick the device. In other words, render it useless or kill it. In most cases, user interaction is required to update firmware for this reason. So why do versions matter? Vulnerabilities are found daily. Vulnerabilities are registered with MITRE.org. Check it out for yourself at https://cve.mitre.org. These are known as common vulnerabilities and exposures and are registered in a freely browsable database. This is what the website looks like. At time of recording, if you type Windows 10 into the search, it will return 1123 results. Common vulnerabilities and exposures. So CVEs are in the format of CVE, year, and random number. So let's have a closer look at CVE 2020-1472. We'll go to the MITRE address shown on the screen. I've chosen this exploit because it is one I have used in the past to exploit an unpatched server. Okay, now that I've gone to the link, let's have a look at this CVE. Note the CVE number. We can see that you can search the CVE list and note the total number of CVE records. We can see in the description of this CVE, it reads, an elevation of privilege vulnerability exists when an attacker establishes a vulnerable netlogon secure channel connection to a domain controller using the netlogon remote protocol MSNRPC, aka netlogon elevation of privilege vulnerability. You can see there are a number of reference websites that discuss the vulnerability. If we click on the link, Learn More at National Vulnerability Database, we'll see more information about this vulnerability. On this website, we can see the CVE score. This rates as a 10 critical. 10 is the worst. 1 is the best when it comes to the vulnerability ranking system. The higher the number, the easier it is to exploit. 10 is as bad as it gets, but as good as it gets if you're a hacker. If we scroll down, we'll see what versions of Windows it affects. We can see that it affects Windows Server 2008 R2 all the way through to Server 2019. Not great if you aren't patching your operating system because it affects every version of Windows Server. On the other hand, this information will have you drooling if you're a black hat hacker. Now let's go back up the list here and we'll go to the Microsoft website to see if there's an update to fix this vulnerability. When we click on the link, we go to Microsoft and see more information about this particular vulnerability. We can see in the metrics they talk about the CIA triad: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. If you haven't watched the video Modus Operandi of the cyber attack, then go back and watch it for details on the CIA triad. We can see the impact on the CIA triad is high. Scrolling down, we have a look at the temporal score metrics. In the temporal score metrics, we can see there is a proof of concept in the wild and there is an official patch for it. So we can see proof of concept, official fix. Scrolling right down, we can see when it was patched. August 11, 2020. This means that if you have the latest updates, you'll be safe from this particular CVE. Let's see if there's more than a proof of concept out there. So we'll go to Google. The top result is a link to ExploitDB, and this is the resource if you're a hacker. Working exploits and proof of concept code is uploaded to this website. When we go to the link, we see exploits for zero logon, net logon, elevation of privilege. This is what the CVE talked about. We can see when the exploit was released in November 2020, 3 months after the exploit was patched. But that doesn't matter. If we find a server that is not being patched, this will work for us. You can see that the exploit database has not verified this exploit. I can confirm that this code actually does work. I was able to exploit a server I built to test this vulnerability. What it does is you run the code, point it at the target server, and it resets the administrator password to blank. Once the password is blank, you simply log onto the server with a blank password. Easy as that. Now we can see how easy it is to find a CVE with a rating of 10 and then find working exploit code. If a black hat hacker can find your server and it's unpatched, it's game over. Okay, let's get out of this rabbit hole and continue on with talking about the Essential 8's patching operating systems. We're now exiting the propeller hat zone. Now we know why it is so important to patch operating systems. The Essential 8 requires us to have an automated mechanism to confirm and record that deployed operating system and firmware patches or updates have been installed, applied successfully, and remain in place. For a do-it-yourself solution, Microsoft have a product called Windows Server Update Service, or WSUS. This is really hit and miss as to whether it patches your systems and requires constant attention to make sure systems are patched. For a more robust solution, speak to your IT provider, as it's likely they have a managed services product like Enable to manage the patching system for you. It's definitely worth the peace of mind and will help you be compliant with Maturity Level 3. Remove old operating systems from your network. Operating systems for workstations, servers, and ICT equipment that are no longer supported by vendors with patches or updates for security vulnerabilities are updated or replaced with vendor-supported versions. This specifically relates to Windows 8, Windows 7, Windows Vista, and Windows XP, but it does not exclude previous Mac OS X, Linux, and IoT operating systems and firmware. These devices need to be replaced if they are no longer supported. Maturity levels. In the premium membership, there will be individual videos on each of the Essential 8, which will dive into each of the maturity levels and what you need to know to implement them. For the moment, all we need to know is that there are 3 levels in each of the Essential 8 items: Maturity Level 1, 2, and 3. To be fully aligned with patching operating systems Maturity Level 3, we must conform to the following strategies. Security vulnerabilities in operating systems and firmware assessed as extreme risk are patched, updated, or mitigated within 48 hours of the security vulnerabilities being identified by vendors, independent third parties, system managers, or users. When we looked at zero logon, the exploit code was released 3 months after the patch. If you had patched your server 48 hours after the patch was made available, you wouldn't have to worry. An automated mechanism is used to confirm and record that deployed operating system and firmware patches or updates have been installed, applied successfully, and remain in place. We talked about the DIY WSUS solution from Microsoft and a managed services solution from your IT provider. Operating systems for workstations, servers, and ICT equipment that are no longer supported by vendors with patches or updates for security vulnerabilities are updated or replaced with vendor-supported versions. Remember, we should replace computers running Windows 8 and earlier and any Mac OS X, Linux, and IoT devices if they are no longer supported. So what did we learn? Patching is very important. Exploiting unpatched systems can be very easy. Systems running Windows 8 and earlier should be replaced. Any unsupported device on your network should be replaced. Automated patching can be performed by WSUS or your managed services provider. Thank you for joining me for a look at patching operating systems. Don't forget you can contact me via email, Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. Until next time, stay safe online.
Oh yeah, this is the Cyber Informer. Hackers, you going down like, oh yeah, this is the Cyber Informer. Hackers, you going down, yeah.